That's right. 8:25 on a Thursday, which means none other than the man, not the myth, in the flesh, on the phone, in your ears. Nate Taylor joins us, ESPN's own. Nate, where do you rank Alex Smith's legacy in Kansas City?
This is a great topic. I rank him pretty high. Yeah, I actually rank him pretty high because I don't think, hearing you guys, I completely agree. When it comes to, like, who are the two teammates that matter most to Patrick Mahomes in terms of his growth in his career, it really is Alex Smith and Travis Kelce. And I wish, because I've always said Alex Smith is sort of a Shakespearean character in the entire arc of the Chiefs dynasty. He had to be sacrificed in a lot of manners. I want to remind people that loss to the Tennessee Titans in the wild card round was because Travis Kelce had a concussion and because the defense absolutely collapsed.
And it hit Darrelle Revis directly in the face mask and fell right into Mariota's hand in the worst football call you've ever seen of Derek Johnson's sack.
I mean, that whole game sucked.
Forward progress was stopped. I mean, again, like he had, the best season of his career statistically in 2017, and it ends in sort of again, very Shakespearean, like, what in the world just happened? But because of all the things he did and because he was, and I think he even says it, he sums it up beautifully in the Kingdom documentary, when he says, look, we signed up to play a team sport. And so he played his role as a teammate to get this team to be in a position to not just respectability, but for them to take it to the next level without him. So he, I know there's been a decent amount of fans that say, and I hadn't asked you guys, like, why isn't Trent Green in the Ring of Honor? And I say, that's a great question. Mm-hmm. And you could ask, or you could say the same thing when it comes to Alex Smith, in terms of, like, what he did and what it means in the overall grand picture to the franchise.
Yeah, and now that he's officially eligible for the Hall of Fame, he could be in the Ring of Honor. You mentioned Trent Green. That is an interesting one. I always believe Carl Peterson needs to be in the Ring of Honor. He saved that franchise here in Kansas City. And the further it goes away, nobody gives that guy credit for literally saving the franchise. I was going through old stuff months ago, and I found an old newspaper article from the Kansas City Star of 2002, and it was written by, I want to say it was Wright Thompson at the time, but he was out in L.A. doing all this, what if the Chiefs were to move to L.A. type of stuff, and that was in 2002. And so I was thinking, like, man, I mean, people don't really give credit nowadays to Carl Peterson, what he did to basically save this franchise here in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's really him and Marty Schottenheimer, right? They are the two. They are the two that say, "Hey, we need to reignite the fan base. We need to have an actual identity as a team. We need something to actually promote and sell to the local customer base." They make the smart decision. I mean, I know the 80s were a certain era of the NFL, and we don't talk about it a ton because of somewhat less glamorous. But, like, they were the ones that made the decision on Neil Smith and Derek Thomas, two guys that were pillars for the team to have sustained success in the 90s. So, yeah, I completely agree. I have no issues with Carl Peterson in terms of, again, his role, his impact in the franchise as well. It's unfortunate for him as well in a similar sense that he and Marty got to the playoffs, but obviously never got that Lamar Hunt trophy. But it's when I try to encapsulize everything that's gone on, essentially in my lifetime, which is basically 40 years, you need the 30 years prior to 2018.
You do.
You really do. And I hope people understand that, because it's like, hey, for all the Taylor Swift fans that have come through, for a lot of people that are like, hey, we didn't know the Chiefs were going to be quite this good or be the next thing to the the New England Patriots, and I'm entirely fascinated with the Patriots documentary because there's so many similarities and differences. But you really do need the 30 years of, like, hey, this thing was cratering, maybe teetering on irrelevance to all of a sudden now, this stadium's been around for 50 years. There's a lot of contention around whether or not it's going to stay or not. But at the same point in time, you need everything that leads up to why the team is so successful and why the team is memorable.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, Nate, I'm glad that you brought that because we can segue into this massive game that's at 3:25 on Sunday at One Arrowhead Drive. You talk about what makes this team successful. I'm in the belief that with Worthy and Thornton, with the emergence of Thornton with Mahomes and Xavier Worthy, we know that chemistry. I just want to send both those cats deep on the first play and run a play action because everyone thinks that the Chiefs need to run the ball. The Ravens suck at stopping the run. We saw that on Monday Night Football. It's in their head. They're on the fringe of teetering to a terrible season. The Chiefs are trying to make something new. You got Xavier Worthy. You send him deep. You see which safety takes which side. And then if you want, you run Hollywood underneath and you run Juju or Noah Gray underneath and set the offense up there and kind of start off that way. It's like a pitcher with a fastball at 98 miles an hour, and he comes out and throws you a 79-mile eephus pitch.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. Put it in the playbook, man. Put it in the first 15, right? I want to remind the audience, because I think it was a little bit shocking on Monday night to like watch the game between the Ravens and the Lions. But it's pretty clear when you look at it on tape, the Ravens, in a very fast manner, have lost a lot of speed on defense. It's Kyle Hamilton and a bunch of dudes. So in terms of the speed, factor, you definitely can use a multitude of ways to get the ball to Xavier Worthy, whether that's, we saw the Chiefs sort of incorporate, hey, the jet sweep kind of came back last week against the Giants. You can run him deep. The legs aren't an issue. He's been dealing with, trying to figure out how he's going to protect himself with that right shoulder. But Tyquan Thornton's become a real threat. He's someone who can get behind the Ravens secondary as well. So I love the idea of getting under center, presenting the, hey, we watched tape too, and we just noticed that, they just bullied you guys. They just ran right through your face. And so, hey, we might even want to show that on the first play, right? You might want to get under center and just say, hey, we'll run behind Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Kingsley Suamataia, and then set up the play action, or obviously vice versa. But I think the Chiefs should honestly do themselves a favor and use Robert Tonyan, use Noah Gray. Obviously, Travis Kelce's going to be on the field quite a bit. But the fact is you could put two tight ends out there, and the fact that, yes, the Detroit Lions have better running backs, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to disagree with you there. But when the Lions said, hey, we want to run the football and we want two tight ends out there, which means you have to have three linebackers out there, those guys are not fast. And it was weird to see Jahmyr Gibbs just run right through them. And I know the Chiefs are looking for a moment where Isaiah Pacheco could have a breakout or could have something where it starts to click. Well, this is the perfect opponent to run the football, to set up the deep passing attack. And because Xavier Worthy was a full participant yesterday, and he's expected to be a full participant at practice today, everything is trending to him being a decent part of the game plan, right? This isn't a guy that, at least I get the sense so far, like, hey, we can only play him for like 20 snaps. I don't get that sense. I think he could be on the field for maybe half the snaps on Sunday to provide another real explosive threat against this Ravens defense that not only is banged up, but is, again, lost some of its edge, lost some of its speed from what we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, they're definitely not your father's Baltimore Ravens from a defensive standpoint, which is remarkable that they've been able to keep that identity for 30 years on the defensive side and just constantly turn it over. But for me, it's not about the Ravens this week. It's about this offensive line, and it's about Creed, and it's about Trey. I need those guys to play better. What do you think?
It's a great point.
Thank you.
Guys, I think the most shocking thing, beyond just the whoa, they gave up how many points at home in a primetime game when you had 8 days to prepare? The most shocking thing was, okay, the Lions were the team who got more consistent pressure on the quarterback, even though Lamar Jackson, as we all know, is incredibly elusive. Jared Goff is basically a statue, guys. Was not sacked once. So if we already know that Madam Ndike is not playing, their talented nose tackle, defensive tackle, who can generate a pass rush in the middle, this really should be a game where Patrick Mahomes feels more comfortable, has more time in the pocket, can actually survey the field if he has, a plethora of options with Hollywood, Xavier, and Tyquan. This should be a game where, hey, you just played a really good defensive line in the New York Giants. That was the focal point of their defense. Well, the focal point of the Ravens is, hey, can we stay away from Marlon Humphrey? Can we stay away from Kyle Hamilton? And the Lions were able to do that because Jared Goff had all the time in the world to throw the football. So, again, you're seeing incremental progress from the offensive line. Kingsley was not as bad Sunday as he was in Sao Paulo. So if that's going to continue, this should be the game where Patrick Mahomes really can start to open up, start to have a little bit more playmaking, a little more creativity to him, because I just don't think the Ravens have as good a pass rush as the Chiefs have seen the last two games between the Eagles and the Giants.
Nate, I want to bring this up real quick because we know there's loyalty with the right tackle and the head coach. And I kind of compared this earlier to a couple you've been around. I mean, we both went to Warrensburg. There's probably a lot of this where he's a really nice guy. He just, when he drinks, he's an ass. It's fine, but he's got his moments. And it's like, Andy said yesterday in the press conference that, you're well aware of that. He said, he's done good stuff, but obviously there's some penalties and I'm going to take care of that. We've heard Matt Nagy call him out. Now Dad's got full attention. What is, in your opinion, what is the storyline? What is the leash? What is the moment? Or are they just going to keep rolling with this guy because they have a trust in him?
This makes me laugh because it's so true. In a sense, like, again, I don't want to promote where you're like, just you got to leave him. What is he doing? What does he provide? I understand.
You know what I mean by the relationship thing then?
Yeah, but it's great because you're like, look, man, it could be better. Like sometimes I understand maybe the grass isn't always greener, but like look around. Jalen Moore's available. Like that's what your boys are basically saying. Mm-hmm. Like, come on, man, and you already got her number. So the funny thing is, this was as close as we've seen, and I think since Matt Nagy's return, where he actually played what Eric Bieniemy used to be, which was bad cop, good cop, where it was Eric Bieniemy who would tell you that you stink, that you got to improve, that I'm going to be on your what for God knows however long until you get it right. We used to saw Eric Bieniemy do that all the time. And again, he had a lot of runway because he had the support of Andy Reid. Well, now Matt Nagy's telling us, look, man, it's got to stop. Please, for the love of God, stop with the penalties. And we saw his play actually suffer when he wasn't penalized Sunday. That is what's most concerning is that, hey, man, you were getting kind of overwhelmed on just traditional, three-step dropbacks for Mahomes. And that can't fly anymore, especially when the team, in terms of the front office, has already invested, Jalen Moore as essentially a $10 million player a year guy, right? Which is borderline starting quality money. What Andy Reid, though, is he is so loyal, guys. I cannot stress enough how loyal this man is, even though we all got eyes. So he's going to do what he has done in the past, which is give the veteran one more chance. Like, I don't think Andy Reid really wants to bench Jawan Taylor. I really get that sense. I do not want to do this. So I'm going to say everything publicly that I would not say privately.
Yeah.
And so my interpretation is, look, guys, I know you're going to ask me about it, but I've won a Super Bowl with him. I've been to multiple Super Bowls with him. When the play has to reach a certain level, when the money's on the line, Jawan Taylor can be a very good pass blocker.
I
got eyes.
Yeah.
But I got eyes too, guys. And so I'm just not going to criticize him publicly. I'm not going to put more pressure on him publicly. I am fascinated as to, does Jawan Taylor respond to the fact that now Andy Reid probably has to say something behind closed doors to get him to understand just how much he's on thin ice.
Well, and I hope he realizes this, and I hope Andy does as well, because we're playing with Jawan Taylor like we are a team that can overcome mistakes. And at this point in time, the Chiefs aren't a team that can overcome a Harrison Butker missed field goal or a Travis Kelce drop or a Jawan Taylor penalty. This isn't 2 years ago where, 2nd and 15, forget about it, we're fine. Like, this team does not, as of this point, right, have the ability to overcome those mistakes. That's why these mistakes are so magnified by Taylor and why they have to stop happening.
Correct. And you got a healthy Mahomes, right? You don't want this to get to a point where what happened last year, and I think people forget about it because, hey, they went back to the Super Bowl, which is, again, remarkable. But, guys, he took over 100 hits last season, right, because the offensive line just could not give him consistency at a high level. So this has a cumulative effect. Hey, man, if you're all of a sudden not giving us the play we expect and you're pushing the ball backwards and Mahomes is starting to take more hits, which could lead to, obviously, a higher risk of injury, then, yeah, you don't need that. You don't need Harrison Butker all of a sudden missing a field goal or an extra point a game, because this team is right now playing in the 20s. They're not playing in the 30s, right? And so, again, it would be quite concerning if we just saw Baltimore give up a bunch of points to a very talented Detroit Lions team, then have to go on the road 6 days later and you not get close to 30, right? If this game is in the low 20s, I would be concerned, because it's like, well, that means that there are just as much issues with you as there are issues with the Ravens defense. So this team cannot overcome all its mistakes. They were fortunate that the Giants are not good. And hey, you might be fortunate that the Ravens are banged up and are not good either. But at some point, when you get your rematch against the Chargers, when you play the Lions in a couple weeks, when you see obviously the indomitable Buffalo Bills right now, you're going to have to minimize all those self-inflicting wounds so that we can see what your actual potential is, what's your maximum effort for an offense that, again, has not been healthy yet, but is obviously trending in the right direction with Xavier Worthy expected to come back Sunday.
Well, Nate, we appreciate the time, and we have to give you a joke from the text line because you know what Jawan Taylor's favorite drink is.
Oh, boy.
It is.
Here we go.
It's penalty.
Oh, no.
Well,
oh, no.
Keep doing the Lord's work, Nate. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
All right, fellas.
Take care, man.